Hi, this is May.
And I'm Joy.
Welcome to the QWERTY Writing Life podcast, where we have candid chats about our creative lives.
May and I are friends, writers, and creatives who want to share our endeavors out loud.
On this podcast, we're here to encourage each other, and you too,
and share tools we've discovered or made up.
So you can follow your passions with a little support. So grab your tea
or your coffee,
and let's get started. Hello, everyone.
Hello, welcome.
Hi, it's another week, and we are so excited to be here with you today. We are going to be doing something a little bit different on this episode. When we started this whole writing gig in 2016, Joy and I emailed each other once a week, and we called it the QWERTY report. And that's kind of the foundation of this whole QWERTY Writing Life podcast. So we thought this week it would be kind of cool to do a throwback and share with you in real time a QWERTY report, not from the past, but from the present. So we're not typing it up. We're just going to talk to each other, which is going to be kind of cool. And how we would begin the QWERTY report before would be with our creative weeks. So Joy, what did you do this week?
So this past week, I have been working on editing again for my clients. So this is when I edit, I have 3 rounds. This is the 3rd round, and it's so exciting to see how a manuscript progresses through the process, and also to see how the client appreciates it and realizes, oh, all that red, this was a good idea. like this is so much better, because as writers, of course, we don't like that red. But then once you actually accept it and see the effects and all of that, you realize, wow, this is really amazing. And so it's always kind of cool to see that in someone else. So there was that, and I worked on tweaking the poem that we did on the podcast episode with your challenge, and I had fun doing that, and I had big plans for it, and you know what? They just didn't happen, and that's okay. It'll come at another time.
It absolutely will. I think it's really cool that you're able to adapt, though. You might have been sad about it at first, but you seem pretty settled with it right now. And I think that that's a good thing, to be able to be like, you know what, that didn't work out, but I am only human, and I can only do the things that I can do. And this week, it was not putting out a poem. You couldn't do that. You couldn't add that to it. And that's okay, because you still have the critiques, you still have all of this other stuff, and you can even make it something even better at a later date. If you would have tried to rush through and get it out there, it might not have been something that you were super proud of, even though you should have been, because it was a great poem. But yeah, I think you made the right decision with being able to say, you know what, this is my limit and I've reached it. There's value in that.
Thank you for saying that. Because it's hard. It's hard to say that and to admit that and to, yeah, it is.
Because we all want to be super women. And you know what? We're told that we're supposed to be super women. And we try to live up to that. But honestly, guys, we're just human. We're just regular old humans. No demigods here. So we can only do what we can do.
So what about you? Tell me what you've been up to.
Well, I critiqued a poem, which was actually yours.
Yes, you did. Thank you. You're amazing.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It was already great. I hope that some of the notes will make it even more great. And I also got something really interesting, because you sent another document with it. And I didn't read that document first. I actually only read the poem and only critiqued the poem. And then I read the other document. And the other document that you sent me was your thought process and how you wanted to use this poem and why you chose certain words and this sort of thing. And I thought that was really, really interesting to read what you were thinking, and then to compare that to my own personal experiences, my interpretation, my translation of what you wrote, and to see how those things were alike and also see how those things were different. And that was really fun for me to read your thoughts about that after I had critiqued the poem. and be able to say, this was in there. This didn't show through very much. If you want to use this for X, then you might need to add a little bit more of Y and Z. So that was kind of it was, I don't know, it was fun.
That's cool.
So that was my big thing, I think, creatively. Still homeschooling, still a full-time job, still surviving the epidemic. Yeah, and right when we think we have a routine down, something happens and a wrench is thrown in. So that, I think, I'm more routine based than I like to believe I am in my head, in the romantic part of my vision of who I am. I am just somebody who can just go with the flow, and that is not true, as I have come to find out in this shelter in place situation. But that's okay. We're human. Ha.
I think that's going to be like the theme here.
Yeah.
Routine is good.
So,
And yes, I struggle with that too. Like, I would like to know exactly how every day is going to go. I would like to have it be the same. I would like to have, 1 to 3 to do this and to not be interrupted by kids or barking dogs.
yes.
And, all these things. And that's just, you know what? It's not life. So in the spirit
So,
of that would lead really well, actually, into kind of the second part of our QWERTY reports. And that would be, so what's the plan going forward? What's the next step for you?
yeah, I think before we can do that and do it in a way that the people who are listening can comprehend, we kind of need to talk about where we are creatively during COVID-19. And I know that everybody's so tired of hearing about COVID-19, or as I lovingly call her, Rona. Um,
Rona.
but we got to talk about that though, because it is a thing, right? So I know my creativity is different. How are you doing? How is your creativity?
It's struggling. A lot of it is that routine thing, right? So our routine, which, I mean, normal life for me isn't a nice, neat routine anyway, but my husband's job, which we're very thankful he still has a job. And so, I hesitate to complain or to talk about how it's been difficult because he has a job. So,
Mhm.
perspective. But his hours have drastically changed. He is working many more hours, which, is just longer days for him. And the things, he's such a great support with helping me around the house. But with these longer hours, he's not able to do that. Like, usually he would do certain things before or after work. Well, he can't do that because he's literally working 11 to 14 hours a day. So he doesn't have that time before and after. And then when he does have his off days, he's exhausted. So it's not like he can really help then either. So with all of that, and I let other people's emotions and struggles and challenges, like every little thing that I know about, whether it be the overall pandemic of the world or whether it's one friend who I know has a certain problem going on right now, those things really weigh on me. And when they do, it's very hard for me to focus and do the things that I need to do. So the combination of having less time, less help, and having all of those things weighing on me has made it very difficult to focus, to concentrate, to do my work. And so, with this editing client, that's my priority. And so, because that's my priority, all of the other things that I typically do, the blogging and the social media and the newsletters and the, writing the book and, all of these things have had to be pushed down because I had to take the time that I had and the concentration and the energy to focus on this client. So there's that. And yeah, so I think, does that kind of answer, kind of where my head is right now? very definitely having trouble concentrating and focusing, and you know what, and I think too, having trouble allowing myself to do my creative things. I just
Mm.
haven't allowed myself. I don't know that I really realized that that's the fact until right now, but yes.
Yeah. So I hear a few things in that. Let's we can unpack a few things.
Mm.
Um, First of all, it sounds like your creative like bandwidth has not shrunk, because that's not really the thing. It's like you're just uber focusing that on your editing, which I mean has to be done. Like that just has to be done. So that makes total sense. Also, whenever you're stressed and whenever you're tired, I don't know if you have been getting a lot of sleep lately, but those whenever you're stressed and tired, your creativity is the first thing that goes, because you start shifting into survival mode and your brain is like, oh, nope, we are not okay. we're, like,
Cannot
we're not
handle
safe
anymore.
anymore. Exactly. We're not safe anymore. So it starts thinking, like, what can we do in order to feel safe again? So you're talking about taking care of your family. You're talking about, making sure that they have clothes to wear, stuff to eat. You're talking about making sure that your husband is in a loving home when he comes home, because he's got all of these hours that he's working, all of these stresses outside of the house. So you are taking care of all of these people. And by taking care of all of those people and making sure that they have what they need, that makes you feel more safe. It's what it sounds like to me. Um, does that make sense?
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is because you said that you take other people's emotions and you internalize them. And that's called an empath. You're an empath.
I am. I've actually been called that before. Yeah.
so,
It's a thing.
so, yeah, it's a thing. It's a true. I honestly think so too. So, one of my professors, she told my new boss that she enjoyed having me in class because I was a barometer for how the lecture was going. So yeah. And at first I was like, this is a terrible thing to say about me in front of my new boss, you know. But once I got to thinking about it and stuff, it's like, okay, I can totally see that. And also, it's not necessarily an insult. I don't think she meant it that way at all. I think that she was like, this is actually kind of a cool thing, because if May is engaged, then other people have to be engaged, because yeah, like I'm doing well if May is engaged, so so I actually thought that that was it ended up being kind of a compliment rather than an insult. But I recognize that in you too. And you and I are the same in that way. Like we love people with our whole hearts. That's just how we do it. So if somebody lays something on us with emotions that are strong emotions, there's nobody who is going to cry in front of me that I'm not crying with them. So then that takes a lot of emotional energy too. And so that's why I say the thing before. Like if your family is okay, if their emotions are well protected, then your emotions in turn are well protected. But that takes a lot of work. so and a lot of extra work for everybody. I know that, probably for the kids and for you too, because you don't have that extra hand. And also you're trying to make sure all of the pieces are well placed and that they're not broken. With your creativity and with your books and things like that. So if we're in survival mode, we don't really have that extra space to where we can go into creative thought. And if you were to try to force it, it probably would be erased after all of this.
Yeah.
But there are some really cool things that you can do, though. You can totally brainstorm. You can listen to the music that you have, because I know you like playlists. You can listen to the music that you have for the book that you're wanting to write or the project that you're wanting to do after all of this, after all of the editing as well. It's not super creative, but it fills the well. So when your brain snaps out of survival mode, you are like there, you're ready to create and to create a whole bunch, because I feel like it'll be like, I'm backlogged. I need to do all of the things. things are not okay, and it's okay to feel not okay
Right.
while the world is in this state. There are probably a lot of people who are creating too, and maybe that's the way that they deal with all of this. Uh, but maybe that's not us.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So share your thought process right now. Like, how are things for you?
So things for me are a little difficult. I have a lot more responsibilities placed on me, well, because of Rona.
Yeah.
But
Auntie Rona.
creating is difficult. I'm not feeling the ability to create at this point in time. So I'm trying to find out ways that I can channel not creativity, but how I cannot leave that out of my life. Because I feel like if I left it totally out of my life, then I would be completely depressed right now. And depression and anxiety and stuff kind of runs in my blood. So what I'm doing to try to combat that is I'm taking a writing course, which I'm enjoying very much. So there are some days that instead of doing the full time job until midnight, I am doing classwork until midnight. But there is a revitalization in all of that too. Like that's for me, that's for preparation for the future, which also feels hopeful, and for comfort. And also because at the end of the day, when it's time for me to go to bed, I have spent so much time focusing and fulfilling all of these things that my brain is still like, it's still going. Even though my body's exhausted, my brain is still like, okay, what's next? Because from 6 o'clock in the morning, it's been what's next, what's next, what's next, what's next. So it's still in that mode. So trying to calm it down before I can go to sleep has been kind of difficult, but I found that rereading books that I like, that I already know that I like, has been really helpful in being able to get me to sleep. I already know what's going to happen. I already know the characters. I don't have to, it's not really sparking anything. It's kind of just like a warm blanket that you wrap around yourself, and you can kind of just find comfort in that. So that's been really helpful for me too. So where am I in the whole quarantine thing? I am running like a crazy person, but in a hopeful way. I don't know.
Well, that's good because you're finding things that you can do, like you said, to keep that little spark there and to just fuel you, to have something that's yours. And I think that that's super important. And I also want to recognize that that is extremely difficult, especially in times like these. And especially, I think, for people like us who, we have so many people that we have to take care of and hold up and do all these things for all these other people. Like, to take that and to actually do something that we know that we need, that's not easy to do. So that's commendable, and I'm excited about it because I know that, like we were talking about earlier, like during this time and how crazy it is, your mind, you can't just really be creative a lot of the time with everything else that's circling and just almost like a whirlwind around us. But these are things that are going to prepare you when you can do that again to make you a better creative. And so I think that that's really cool. I'm excited about that. We both have kind of talked about this earlier, is you have to admit when you can't do that one more thing. And, I think that was, for me, I should have already had this book written, that, my short story collection. And I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't. And part of it was I had some really great sessions of, like you talked about, brainstorming, like, and things like that. And the entire book is outlined. Like, I understand the structure of how all those short stories are going to come together, which is a really cool thing. Like, I figured all that out, and I got some of the writing done, but I didn't get a ton of it done. And at first, I was really down on myself and all of that kind of stuff. But then I had to realize this isn't a typical time. And like you said earlier, if you try to force something like this, it's not going to come out right. And I finally admitted that and recognized that. I think that that's something important for creatives to admit and to understand. And, another thing is, I also had to recognize that there are certain needs in my family that are stronger right now than have been before. And that kind of has to take priority. So, it's those little things. It's finding a way to get that time to have that thing for us. It's also prioritizing, which is probably going to look completely different right now than it usually does. And just understanding and giving yourself grace. I think that those are all huge things. So, like, I have planned next week is we're finally going to take our spring break. So I have always homeschooled my kids, so that's not a new thing. But we did not take a break earlier like we had originally scheduled out, because originally we were going to be going for a book tour, basically, not a whole tour, but like some specific book events for me. And that was going to be our spring break. Well, obviously those didn't happen. So we just kept doing school. Like, we didn't stop. We never stopped throughout all this. And I'm worn, and I know that the kids are too, and I really need a week. And so next week, because this editing will be done for my client, next week is going to be my week. So that's going to help to not have to worry about teaching and prepping in addition to trying to write the book. So we'll see how it goes.
I think it's so interesting, the human ability to do more than what we think. I think we underestimate ourselves in some cases. So, and I'm not saying that we should push ourselves to do something creatively, but I just want to sit here and applaud us for like doing the things that need to be done. Like being able to recognize what our priorities are, being able to recognize that these are the things that are different than what our life was before, and being able to provide the best environment that we can for our families. And I just, sometimes that means that we have to do so much, and that we don't get to sit down, and that we don't get to, maybe we don't get to make the gourmet dinner that we don't want, but dadgummit, we've got a frozen pizza, and everybody's eating and everybody's laughing. I mean, we can provide humor, and we can provide solace, and we can provide a safe place for our kids and our animals and our, and even our spouses or our partners or the people who are in our home. Like, there are so many ways that we are excelling. And then to sit there and say, but I can't write a short story, and be really beat up about that, that's not where our focus needs to be. Our inner dialogue can really be mean sometimes, and just be terrible to us. And I know I've kind of had to face that just today, the fact that I just need to be kind. And we hear that. We hear that a lot, don't we? Like, be kind to yourself, give ourselves grace, But who does that? I don't know.
Oh, well.
Like, we all know, we all know we should. We all know we should, but I don't really know anyone who really does it well. So maybe we need to become the master of that. And that might be something that we can practice with ourselves while we're in this shelter in place. Yeah. Let's just take a moment to be like, you know what? We're saving somebody's life by staying at home. We are wearing our masks if we do have to go to the grocery store. We are cherishing our family and embracing the people who are at home with us. We're learning something new about our kids or our partners. We are being a rock for the people around us. That's nothing to shake a stick at.
So true. What we would do next in our QWERTY report is just share what our plans were for the upcoming week, what we're hoping to accomplish. And so for me, that would be next week as we take our spring break from school. I will be focusing on finishing up writing the book, the short story collection, and doing some other things. I've already figured out certain days are going to be for me to get a little bit caught up around the house, and then it'll be focused completely on the writing so that I'm not splitting the focus between school and such a big project pushed into a small amount of time. I hope to get the majority of it completed. So that's my plan. So what about you?
So next week, I am hoping to have a critique back on the poetry book. So there is a chance that I will be able to revise the poetry book one last time before I find all of the places I'd like to submit it.
Awesome.
That will be my thing. And I'll also continue with the writing class that I'm taking. So there are lectures and discussion, and there's like a Zoom meeting and exercises, things like that I'll be diving into, which is actually quite fun. I am trying not to focus too much on the fact that this is probably going to be the way that life is for quite a while. I'm trying to think about the future, about hope, about life after Rona. That's what I'm trying to focus on, the hope, the good, the future. And that's what I'll be doing next week. So we are going to do a QWERTY challenge. What do you think about encouraging our listeners to do their own QWERTY report? If you're sending it out on Tuesday, what you've been working on for the past week, what you plan to get accomplished that week, and maybe next Tuesday you can let that writer friend know how that week went and then go forward from there. I know that Joy and I felt that the QWERTY report kind of helped us stay on track. It kept writing in the forefront of our minds whenever we were doing this through email. And of course it does now because we're, doing the podcast. So the QWERTY report is here to stay. It just has mutated. So that sounds negative.
It's expanded. Hey, the X-Men are awesome.
Yeah.
X-Men, Transformers, yeah, we're cool.
All that stuff. So what once was the QWERTY report is now QWERTY Writing Life podcast. So yeah, try to find somebody. If you don't have a writer friend, that's okay. Type it up and send it to editorial@logosandmythospress.com, and we will read your QWERTY report and be cheering you on through the whole week. And you're welcome to update us the next time. Let's be friends. I love the whole idea of a writer community. So let's do this, guys.
We're here.
Have a wonderful, creative, or future grace-filled week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thanks for listening until the end.
Seriously, you're a trooper.
Do you think QWERTY Writing Life is the bomb?
May, you just said the bomb.
Don't you censor me.
If you think QWERTY Writing Life rocks ice for real,
oh my word,
please rate, review, and share us with others.
If you have questions about this week's episode or want to start a conversation, you can reach us by visiting QWERTYWritingLife.podbean.com.
We'll be back next week with more candid chats for you.